Hello, my name is Sergio del Amo. In this video, I'm going to show you how to do a Micronaut framework release. I have here the Micronaut GitHub organization, which is Micronaut Docs projects. The main repo is, or where the core of the framework is Micronaut Docs core, and inside it we have a wiki. And in the wiki, you will find several pages describing how we work, but also you will find a page describing how a checklist that we use to release. And that's here. This checklist is written in a format called task paper. So if you're curious, go to taskpaper.com, and it's a simple plain text format for to-dos. And I use an application on macOS called OmniFocus, which allows you to import a task paper format. So what I will do if I was not using OmniFocus is I will edit this wiki. I will copy. I will not save anything. I have here this saved in a file on my computer, and I have a shortcut. If you don't want to use OmniFocus, that's completely fine. You don't need to OmniFocus to do a Micronaut Framework release. This is a plain text which you could basically toggle things manually. But I'm gonna go ahead and do import this. So I have here a shortcut which will prompt me which version I am releasing. It will run, basically will load into OmniFocus this task paper file, and we'll create a project with it. So let me show you in a second, because once you see it, it will make more sense. I'm gonna say I'm gonna release 443, and this is gonna create a project in OmniFocus. If I go to OmniFocus and I open 443, let me pull OmniFocus to this monitor. So this is the project that we are going to release. This is essentially OmniFocus is a to-do application, and it plays well with task paper. So if you want like a graphical user interface, that's kind of what I use. So the first step is to check that the guides snapshot is actually passing. And I have a link here that you can find here in the plain text file as well. So what is this action, this steps snapshot guide? Let me show you. This is a GitHub workflow. So Micronaut uses heavily GitHub actions. And if you go to Micronaut Guides, Guides is the repository that publishes all the Micronaut Guides, all these tutorials, but also it's a huge functional test. So if you go here and you click a snapshot, this is executed every day at 5 in the morning, or I think Monday to Friday. And it essentially, what it does is runs all the tests, but before running the test, it updates a file where we save the version to the next snapshot. So it basically does here is executes this bash script increment version.sh, which is the simple bash script which will update this version.txt. So if right now we are running in 442, it will change this file to 443 snapshot, and that way we are essentially testing events, everything that is in current snapshot. So one of the steps in the release process is actually make sure that this thing is green. So if you can filter the workflow. So if you can find, you see here that, for example, we wrote here, but before starting a release, make sure that the guys are green. So this is the first step. So once we have this, I'm gonna go ahead and toggle it. The next one is says to support calling and Maven. This is more important for minor releases. We have a limitation with which is explained in this GitHub issue that is linked here in the checklist. But essentially, every module which has an annotation processor, which publishes a processor such as Micronaut validation, Micronaut data, and many others, to be honest, we have many modules already that have an annotation processors. They should be built with the same version of core, because we cannot, we have a limitation in the Maven plugin for KPT, which you can read more in this issue. So the idea is for minor releases, what we want is to essentially release core first and then release every module with that version of core. so that you don't have to do extra releases. Again, read more information about this. This video is a patch release, so you are not going to have to do anything. The next step is create a GitHub project. So we have been using GitHub projects to organize. So how can you access the Micronaut GitHub projects? You go to github.com/Micronaut-projects, and inside here you will see GitHub projects. You see that I typically have like a target date for minor releases. For patch releases, typically we have been doing them every 7 to 10 days. And I have here a board for 443. What I typically do is I will make a copy. So this is under the same GitHub organization. I will do Micronaut 444. I will typically do like the next patch. Copy project. One important thing is the project by default is like set as private. You can edit and change it as public. This is documented in the steps as well. So if you go here, you say create a new patch project and ensure the new GitHub project is public. The next one will be to actually review the GitHub issues and reschedule accordingly. So we have here a couple of issues. I'm gonna go ahead and pause the video while I go through all of this. So I'm going to open all of them in different tabs and I will review them. And then we will I will resume the video. But the idea is I will move most of these cards to the next project, to the next patch project, unless one of these cards is really critical and we need to fix it right now. So ideally we should not be moving a lot of scope from one project to another. We should keep like the scope minimum, but that's kind of what we have been doing so that we keep this release cadence and we keep bringing value to users. So let me pause the video and I will continue in a second. Okay, I have finished reviewing the project. I moved several things to 444. And I have here left in 443 one PR that we have to merge once 443 is releasing guides, and a couple of issues that I want to close, but after the release is done, to ping users that this is fixed. And I left here a feature that we may be able to implement in a starter just before the release. So that's about in terms of reviewing the project board. So before trying to release a starter, one thing that I'm gonna do is review core. So I'm gonna open Micronaut core here, and let's see if we need another release of core. We can take the opportunity to do a release so that is included. So let me show you how the modules are currently being organized. So we have here the default branch of the module. So Micronaut core, and in every module is the next minor branch, right? So we are releasing a patch of the framework. So we are releasing 443. And 443, if you go to GitHub platform is where we essentially publish the Micronaut bill of materials. So if you go to 44x, we can see that the version of Micronaut core that is part of 44x or 442 is core 448, and thus let's see if we have enough things to release a 449 so that it can be part of this patch release, right? So let me show that to you. So I have open Micronaut core here. I'm gonna pull here locally the 44 changes. So there are a couple of things since we released. So one of the things that is 449, so we'll have to update to 449. I will show you a script that I have to make this simpler. there is a bug fix here, and there are some documentation improvements as well, and Java Docs improvements. Let's review the GitHub PRs here. So sometimes we have a milestone that we can check. So there is nothing in the next milestone here, and we just review that there is nothing also in the project as well. But I saw yesterday that we had like a Netty upgrade that I believe maybe was already merged. Let me check that. So we updated Netty. We are trying to be quite aggressive about merging Netty. So this was failing because of this. But SSL test, which is a bit flaky, but I think we can merge down. So I'm gonna merge down that commit, the Netty update, and hopefully we don't break CI, but we will check it. So I'm gonna cherry pick that commit. I'm gonna merge the conflict, and we are gonna wait for the commit. Let me just see the changes here. So these upgrades, so I'm gonna push this, and we're gonna have to wait for CI to pass before releasing. So I'm gonna go here actions. I'm gonna filter for 44x branch. And one thing that I'm gonna do is I'm gonna create a task for me in the 443 release to review that this thing passed. I'm gonna name this task release 4410 once 44x is green, and I'm gonna save it in my to-do application. The branch 44x finished building. I had to do another fix. We had a flaky test, so this is the latest PR that we merged in 44x. So the branch is green now, so I am gonna release it, and this will allow me to show you how to do a release in Micronaut. This is the same for Micronaut for other modules. You go to the releases tab, you click draft a new release, choose a tag. Tags have to start with B, so for version, and then the release that the branch that you want to release. So this will be 4410. And important is to select the branch that you want to release. So we want to release 44x, and I'm gonna click generate nodes, and this will generate the nodes with the PR that we just merged. We cherry picked a couple of PRs, so I'm gonna slightly edit those. So if I go here to 44x and I pull the latest, the commit from Netty will not be there, so I'm gonna add it here. I'm gonna add here dependency upgrades. We typically illustrate dependency upgrades with a rocket, and I'm gonna use the same. The other ones is doc improvement documentation. Let me put this into paint so that we are able to see it. So the docs are here, the Java docs, the raw documentation improvements, the bug fix is here as well. So this looks good. I'm gonna change the title, so this is gonna be Micronaut Core 4410, and the branch is important. I will check it. Another thing that is a good option is to check whether the services that we rely on are operational. So I have this, basically I have a shortcut which will open the status of Sonar Cloud, the status of Gradle, the status of Sonatype. This is especially important that the open source Sonatype repo is operational, and GitHub status as well. So everything is green, so we are ready to release. So I'm gonna click publish release. This is gonna trigger a release. I'm gonna go to actions, and again I'm gonna save this in my to-do applications. I'm gonna pause the video and we will continue once this thing has finished building. I'm gonna say this is for the 4.3 release, and I'm gonna say I'm waiting for CI. Here my to-do list, save, and we will continue once this release is done. The release of Micronaut Core 4.4.10 finished successfully. So the next thing that we are gonna do is we are gonna merge it up, which is important. Whenever we release a module, we should make sure that we merge up. So I'm gonna go to Micronaut Core. I'm gonna pull the latest commit. As you see, when we do a release in GitHub, it's gonna do a commit changing from version snapshot to the version that we tag with, and then it does another commit basically reverting to a snapshot. So I'm gonna merge up to 4.5x. Let's solve the merge conflict. So I'm gonna do nullable injection and optional injection, and we will build the docs in a second to check that that's correct. Not reload it, I think I have to merge that correctly. Revoke was also, let me fix that conflict. I'm gonna leave it the one that was in 4.5x, and I'm gonna also do the 4.5.0 snapshot, solve the merge conflicts in this one, and I'm gonna go and I'm gonna build the docs locally. So you can build the docs with Gradle docs. For every module we have a Gradle task that we check the sanity of the links, which is a bit slow, so that's why I executed with -x HTML sanity check. This is gonna build my docs locally. I always have an Apache running, and I serve the docs for Micronaut in localhost / Micronaut Core. So I'm gonna show you in a second. So if I go here and I load here localhost Micronaut Core, that's gonna load the docs here for me locally. The merge conflict that I wanted to check about was this nullable injection. Let me see if this refreshes. We build also with -javadoc. And there seems to be a compilation error as well. Let me see. Weird. Let me build the docs here in the terminal. So, see what I am missing. Gradle docs. I didn't escape the HTML sanity check. So nullable injection, optional injection, notation I desired for injection to be optional. Okay, so we can remove the optional injection completely. So that will solve the merged commit. So I can go ahead and remove this from the table of contents. So this doc.yaml is the table of contents, and I'm gonna load this file and I'm gonna delete it. And I'm gonna build it now. Now we can just commit and I will run the test locally to make sure that they pass. So this is the idea. So you release core, you merge up, and you make sure that the merge up is a green build. So I'm gonna do that, but that's kind of out of the scope for the release itself. So the next step is to go to platform. So let me show you that. So if I go to platform, I will run the core test locally before pushing the 45x branch. So platform is the module that we use to publish the run this in another monitor to publish the bill of materials. So a Micronaut framework release is actually a platform release, right? So we the default branch is the next minor, but the branch we want to release is the 44x, right? So how do you essentially know that all the modules that have released patch versions are in this module? We have a build script. So if I have here platform 44x and I pull and I can run here the docs, the same as we do in other modules. We have another repository called scripts. So I have basically in my computer I have GitHub, Micronaut Project, the GitHub organization, and then I have Micronaut platform, which is the repo, and then I have another one which is scripts. And inside the scripts we have bomb versions. So we have multiple scripts. So some of these scripts are CLI application, most of them. You can build them as a fat jar or also as a native executable. This was, and I'm gonna execute as java-jar, but in order to be successful, I have to export a GitHub token as an environment variable. So I have to do export a GitHub token. But in order not to show you my token in the video, I'm gonna go and export the GitHub token here in another monitor. So let me just do that. Okay, I have done that. And now what I have to do is java-jar build libs bomb versions, not all, -p. This script assumes that you have the project structure that I showed you. So you have a repository, Micronaut projects, and inside the repository you have a folder per module that you clone. So the -p here is because this is a patch version. And I have here the repo in the 44x branch, which is the branch that I am interested. Since we release core is going to be missing. So it's going to tell us actually that we have to release core, right? So it's telling me that the Micronaut platform has in the bill of materials has 449, but it should have 4410. So this is key to check it basically before a release. So let me wait until it's finished, and we are going to do a commit updating to 4410. I'm going to go here, I'm going to edit Gradle libs versions, I'm going to say core, and this is going to be core 4410. I can run the script again, and now it's going to tell me that everything is fine. So if we go back to our nodes, this is essentially Micronaut platform. So make sure that you merge up any branch. We are up, so we merged 443x into this branch. So the latest for 443x was ignore existing GraalVM resources config, and I believe that's let's see. When was that commit? That commit is from the 12th of April. Ignore existing GraalVM resources config JSON when detecting. So this up to date the branch. So we can toggle that. We are running bomb versions script to make sure that everything is up to date. Bomb versions script just return that everything is up to date. And now we're gonna commit and push and wait until the build is successful. So I'm gonna do a core. I'm gonna follow the same commit structure that we do. So I'm gonna do here 440. I'm gonna commit this. I'm gonna run the build locally here. I'm gonna push.
Done.
And now I'm gonna push this, and we are gonna wait until platform is green in 44x. So as always, I'm gonna create a to-do task, and I'm gonna wait. I'm gonna pause the video, and we are gonna resume it once the branch has built successfully. Micronaut platform 44x finished successfully, so we are ready to continue testing. So let me check this. And now we are in a starter. So the starter, this Micronaut Starter is the repository which publishes Micronaut Launch and also distributes the Micronaut CLI, the Micronaut command line interface, as native executables to SDKMan and also to Homebrew and Chocolately. So it's kind of the last step in the release process. So Micronaut platform is a release to Maven Central, and Micronaut Launch is a release to the Micronaut Launch, the project generator, and also the command line interface. So I'm gonna open Micronaut Starter here. I don't have it organized. Starter. Yes, let me open it directly here. So I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna go Micronaut Starter, and I'm gonna open this in GitHub, and I'm gonna open this in IntelliJ as well. So the first step that it says make sure that you have the merge tab. So we have from the 17th of April a fixed class name in function controllers, and that's already merged up here. So we can toggle that to do. The next one is ensure a Micronaut branch is publishing a snapshot correctly. GitHub Actions should use the correct branch name, and we have a link. So the important bit here is that we are in all these snapshot workflows, we are actually using the correct branch. So I think that's the case already for 44x. It's the case. So let me search for 44x. And that's already in all the snapshots. So that's completely already done. So this is typically something that you will do whenever you are creating a new minor branch of a starter, but we'll have here in the to-do list, so to make sure we don't forget. Ensure a Micronaut Starter has a branch testing the version to be released. So what I like to do here always is go here to Micronaut Starter. Is weird because it's always building snapshots. So it's a project that sometimes fails. So let me go to here. Let me actually sign into GitHub. Later. So if I filter here for 44x, let me see if this thing is green. Starter is one of the slowest builds that we have, if not the slowest. So I'm gonna do a commit and setting the version to core to 4410. So there are two versions here. One is for Micronaut Core and this is for Micronaut Platform. Important is that before we release, we change both versions to non-snapshot version. So we have not released Micronaut Platform yet, but I want to trigger a build of Starter using the latest version of Core to make sure that this thing still passes. So I'm gonna do here build. I'm gonna say Micronaut Core 4410, and we are gonna push this upstream. And as always, I'm gonna wait until this build finishes. This can very well take 1 hour to finish. So as you can imagine, I'm gonna pause the video. I'm gonna create here a to-do so that I come back later to this task, and I'm gonna move to something else, and we're gonna wait for Starter to finish. Micronaut Starter finished building successfully the 44x branch, and now I'm gonna run another functional test that ensures that the integration with AWS Lambda and the deployment work. We leverage a feature in Micronaut Launch, which is the ability to add the feature for Amazon Cloud Development Kit, Amazon CDK, which allows you to generate infrastructure as code using Java code. So in Starter, there are several bash scripts in the root of the project which allow you to generate the projects with different configurations and deploy either to the Java runtime in Lambda or to the custom runtime deploying a native image, both Gradle and Maven scripts. So this is the bash script that will be executed locally. And in order to execute it locally, you're gonna need to have the AWS CLI installed in your computer, and also CDK installed in your computer, and the default profile will use an AWS account. So I have here an account. As you can see, this AWS account that I use for testing doesn't have right now any Lambda functions, and you're gonna see that the functional test that we are gonna run will generate those via infrastructure as code. We'll do a HTTP request against the API gateway, which delegates to Lambda. It will get the response, and if everything goes fine, it will be successful. So I'm gonna pull a terminal here into this window, and I am gonna run here test lambda.sh. This will test the Java runtime. And let me do that. So this is gonna first generate a project using Starter. It generates a project in a subfolder. It will then go and execute a bash script. Will basically generate the infrastructure as code and deploy the Lambda function, and then it will do a curl request against API gateway function URL or API gateway HTTP, different options that we have for Lambda. And this integration is especially sensible if you modify, for example, the AWS model. We run it in every release to make sure that this integration is still working, and ideally we should write similar tests for other cloud vendors, maybe using Terraform for test the integration with Azure or Google Cloud. But as of today, as when I am recording this video, we only have this functional test for AWS Lambda. So it's deploying. It will create a CloudFormation stack. The Lambda function is still not being created. This test can take a while, especially the GradleVM test. I'm gonna show you one test passing, and then we will pause the video, but the way you will execute all of these, which is in the checklist, is one after the other. So I will execute test lambda.sh, then test lambda graalvm.sh, and then test maven.sh, and this will test the different integration that we have. If you have not used the Amazon CDK, it's a quite interesting way of generating infrastructure as code. You essentially write the Java code. So what this is doing, just so that you know, is what the test is doing is essentially generating a project with Lambda here, CDK, ARM or x86, and then API gateway. When you select these features, whether you are using a Micronaut application or a function application for serverless, this will generate a multi-project build. So if I go here to preview, you will see that you have two Gradle modules. You have the application, which is basically a hello world controller, and an infra for infrastructure, which this is essentially the Java code that will generate the infrastructure as code. So this has a stack, and this generates a Lambda function. It enables by default Snapshot. This will basically set the lock retention to 1 week. Will set the memory size to 2 gigs. It will create an API gateway, and it will output the API gateway URL in the console. We have a small extension on top of CDK to simplify the generation. So we have this fluid API for generating a Micronaut function file, where we select the graalvm false here, optimize the archive name, etc. And if you were here and you select graalvm, this will generate a different infrastructure. So instead of being a Java runtime, this will generate a custom runtime, and we do that here. So we will have here the graalvm native true, and as you see, the runtime is no longer the Java runtime, but the provided Amazon Linux 2023. We also populate the handler accordingly. So when you are using API gateway or when you are using API gateway HTTP, the handlers are different, whether you are using payload 1 or payload 2, or whether you are using a function URL. So this is something to check. So if you see the test executed successfully, so you see the success here, and if I go to the console, maybe we are able to see one function before it's getting destroyed. So the function was already destroyed, we didn't see it, but essentially this is essentially creating a CloudFormation stack and then delete it afterwards. So you see the CloudFormation stack being deleted, so that's why you didn't see it. But if you take if you were to keep watching here, you will see the stack being the test failed because I had already the directory. So let me actually remove the starter cli temp directory, and I will rerun the test. So the test is completely fine. So I'm gonna run them. I'm gonna pause the video, and I expect all the tests to be successful. So I'm gonna run the test Lambda. I'm gonna pause the video now, and we will resume once the test finishes. The bash script to test the Micronaut and AWS Lambda integration using the Java runtime with Gradle just finished. So I'm gonna check it here, and I'm gonna run the test Lambda dash graalvm. So I'm gonna go here. I'm gonna do test Lambda graalvm, and it's asking me to either enter ARM or x86. This is an Apple Silicon Mac, so I have to enter ARM as a parameter, and this is gonna generate infrastructure as code, as I showed you earlier, the necessary one to deploy to an AWS custom runtime. And as you see, it's building the native image of the Micronaut function. So this is a little bit slow, so I'm gonna pause the video. I use an application in macOS to keep the computer running called Amphetamine, which is free. So I use it a lot while doing a Micronaut release. So if you are using macOS, check it out. So as I said, I'm gonna pause the video while the native execution, the native image generation and deployment and test continues, and we will resume once it's finished. Thank you. The test script to test the AWS Lambda and Micronaut and GraalVM integration finished successfully. So I'm gonna toggle the to do, and I'm gonna run the next one, which is the one for Maven. And I'm gonna pause the video and we will resume once it's finished. The test Maven AWS Lambda and micro deployment finished successfully, so we know that that's still working, no issue. So we are ready to release and to release platform. So we have verified that the guides are building successfully. We have verified that platform contains the latest patch releases of every module. We actually check the Micronaut core, we check the GitHub project, and we have checked that the starter bits correctly with the we set the version of core and we run the functional test for AWS Lambda. So now it's time to release platform. So I'm gonna go and check that all our dependencies are operational. So Gradle is green, Sonatype as well, Sonar Cloud and GitHub, and I'm gonna go now to Micronaut platform and we are gonna do a release. To do a release, go to tags, go to tags, go to releases, go to sign in, otherwise you will not be able to do the release. And you click draft and you release the important. We start with P443. The branch is key, so we are releasing 44x. This is Micronaut platform 44x, 443, sorry. I will click generate release notes because we cherry pick some commits will not be there, so I'm gonna manually copy them. So we have Micronaut data, we have Micronaut core, we have this fixed Jackson data bind that was picked up correctly, and test resources and another Micronaut core. Instead of linking to the PRs, which we could perfectly do, I like to do one thing, which is link to the release notes of the module in platform. So I typically do here Micronaut modules, and I have here a shortcut like right say data, and this is 471. I do core 4410, and I do test resources 252, and this is a markdown link. So this is gonna be data 471. This is gonna be core 410. You could also leave like here 449 because that was also a commit here. We put core before the others, and the latest one will be test resources, which is 252. And let's click preview. It's not looking 100% correct. Let me see why it's that case. Now it's looking better. I put the Micronaut modules before the other changes, which seems more important. We are ready to release, so I'm gonna click release set as the latest release. That's correct. Double check the branch again, 44, the tag, publish release. And now we have to wait for this GitHub action to finish. So I'm gonna pause the video and we will continue once it's done. Micronaut platform 443 released successfully. Let's check if it made it to Sonatype. I have a shortcut actually to check that. And indeed it made it successfully. Let me show you the shortcut. So I essentially ask for a version and then I visit this URL. So https :/repo1.maven.org, maven2.io, Micronaut platform, the version that you supply, Micronaut platform the version.pom, and I check if there is an Amazon error code, and if it, I think the Maven Central basically saves in, I guess, in an S3 bucket with CloudFront in front. So when the version is not yet in released successfully, you will get an error code in via an HTTP header. So I essentially check it if it's if this header exists. I saw a notification about an error. If not, I saw a notification that everything went fine. So it's time to check this. Merge up the branch you release into the next minor. We already did that because we have been essentially cherry picking the commits from 4.5x to 4.4x, so there is nothing to merge up. And I merge up this commit, for example, that was fixing a Jackson databind that's already in 4.5x, so we can toggle this task as well. So the next task is to release the starter. So in order to release the starter, we have to do one thing: update Micronaut core and Micronaut core version integrated properties of a starter to the release version and push, and wait for the build to pass. So I'm gonna go here to Micronaut Starter. I am here in branch 4.4x. I'm gonna pull, git pull, just to make sure we have everything. And we are gonna edit graded.properties. Micronaut core is already in a non-snapshot version, so it's already in 4.4.10, and we are gonna remove the snapshot version from 4.4.3, so that's platform. And I'm gonna do here build Micronaut platform 4.4.3, and I'm gonna push, and I typically like to wait that the build passes successfully. We just did this before releasing actually with the previous snapshot, but just to have like a clean build with non-snapshot versions. So I'm gonna wait until these GitHub actions pass before triggering the release. I'm gonna pause the video and we will continue once this the build is successful. Micronaut Starter just finished successfully, so we are gonna trigger the release. So before doing the release, let me verify that everything is green. So GitHub status is green, SonarCloud green, Gradle green, Sonatype green. So we're good. I'm gonna go to trigger release. As always, go to tags, releases, draft new release. Make sure to double check that you selected the correct branch. We are releasing 4. This is 4.4.3. And this is Micronaut Starter 4.4.3. Click generate release notes. We are gonna verify here in Tower the latest commits which were not done via PR. So Micronaut core 4.4.10, and that's all the change logs. So that's what's changed in this release, and we're gonna set it to later release. Again, double check the branch, and there you go. So this is gonna release to SDKMan and to Homebrew and Chocolately. So this is and also to Micronaut Launch. So this is an important release, and we are gonna wait until it's done. So I'm gonna pause the video and we will pick up when it's finished. The Micronaut Starter release just finished, so everything green, that's great. Let's do some extra verification checks that we have in the checklist, but the release is almost done. So trigger the release of Micronaut Starter, done. Wait for the release GitHub actions to pass, done. Merge up the branch you released to the next minor. Let's do that. So let's merge 44x to 45x. 1 second, I have to sign in one password. There we go. So I'm gonna merge up. Let's fix the merge conflict. Is just the version number. So one of the things that the release process done, I will show you in a second, is it automatically changes the Micronaut versions back to a snapshot, both core and starter in the branch. So I'm gonna just push this merge up, and I'm gonna create a to-do for myself to check that the 45x branch built successfully, and then I will merge up to 50x. So I'm gonna filter this. You can filter GitHub actions by a branch, and I'm gonna create a to-do for myself. Ensure Micronaut Starter 45x builds successfully, then merge up to 50x. This is Micronaut Starter and this is CI. I'm gonna save, and we're gonna toggle this. And now we have a bunch of things. We have to create the blog post. The blog post to do item is before, because in minor releases, before releasing, we create the blog post in advance and share it with the core development team to ensure the release notes contains everything that is part of a minor release. Minor release in Micronaut is typically where a feature happens. This is a patch release, so the blog post, as you will see in a moment, is kind of generic. Another thing that we have to do is Micronaut Docs. Let me explain you what this is about. So one of the changes that we recently introduced to Micronaut Docs is Micronaut Docs is an index page linking to several documentation, right? So when we release Micronaut Core, when you release a Micronaut Framework version, so when you release a version of the framework, so we just released 4.4.3, we will have to add it. I will show you how to add it so it appears here. Micronaut 4.4.2, for example, has a version of Core which is 4.4.8. So what we do is that this page is versioned with the versions from the BOM. So you get, when you select 4.4.1, this is links to Micronaut security as its presence in the 4.4.1 bill of materials. And the way we achieve this is we have another repo called Micronaut Docs index, which generates this HTML index page, and I'm gonna, it has a modules.yaml file which we don't have to edit. No, sorry, not module, releases.yaml file. I'm gonna edit, and I'm gonna add here the 4.4.3 release. So we have to edit in two places. Releases is basically all the releases that happen from the framework. So I'm gonna create a PR and encapsulate all the releases changes there. So I'm gonna say release the 4.4.3 release, and I'm gonna create a new branch, and we are gonna do an extra commit in this branch. So this is patch 1. We have to do a commit also in Gradle properties. Gradle properties contains the default, the latest stable release. So imagine we are doing when we do Micronaut 5 releases, and when we do imagine we have to do a Micronaut 3 release. That will not be the latest stable release. That will be part of releases.yaml, but in Gradle property we will define the latest stable release. The latest stable release is basically the release that we wish our users use. So 4.4.3, I'm gonna commit that, the latest stable 4.4.3, and commit. And I'm gonna merge this PR. Let's go to files index where we can see what changed. So 443 and 443 looks good to me. And I'm gonna merge it. And GitHub Actions will republish this HTML page to GitHub pages. Okay, so I'm gonna we will revisit this. So I'm gonna click for now because we have another checklist here. So I have a checklist here which says verify the new versions appear in SDKMan. So let's do SDK list Micronaut. And we should have 443. Let me install it. There you go. Yes, I want it to be the default. That's fine. Go to Micronaut Launch and verify it shows the latest version. So Micronaut 5 has 443. That's correct. So that's looking good. Another one is generate a Micronaut Launch and ship it and check the build.create is not corrupt. We have an issue back then, so I created this item in the to-do list. So I'm gonna download an application and I am gonna unzip it and drag and drop it into an editor so that we see that the build.create file is not corrupt. It is not indeed. So that's looking good. I'm gonna check it. Chocolately, this takes a while, so this probably is not still here, so it's still 442. So we are gonna leave it unlisted. Sometimes it takes even 24 hours. So let's create a blog post. So I'm gonna go to so we typically create the blog post in Google Docs, and the reason is we found is the format that is easier to share between different team members. So Micronaut has people contributing from different companies, and almost everyone has a Gmail address. So I'm gonna copy this Google Doc file, and I'm gonna accept these changes from Jen, and I'm gonna make a copy. I'm gonna put it in release. This is gonna be 443. Make a copy. Four four three. And basically what it says here is what we added in Micronaut platform. Remember, Micronaut platform is actually a Micronaut release. Is a release of Micronaut platform. So I'm gonna go to github.io, github.com/Micronaut projects, Micronaut platform /releases, and we are gonna select the latest one. So this is core 471 data and test resources. So we can probably take it from here. No, I think we can remove the version number here. We can say a release of core, a release of, we can delete this one because we already have the core, release of data and a release of test resources. There you go. We typically have at the end a call to action for people to upgrade to Micronaut 4. Unfortunately, many people are still running Micronaut 3. And a call to action also to reach for commercial support if they need it from the Micronaut Foundation. I will typically put this and run it through Grammarly to ensure I don't have any typos. This and put it in Grammarly. We typically have the framework with a lowercase, so that's something that I will not change. I'm gonna go to micronaut.io/bpadmin. So Micronaut is a WordPress website, at least part of the the docs index, as you saw, is an HTML page. The guide is supposed to be a GitHub page, but the core, what you see when you go to micronaut.io, that's a WordPress website. So I'm gonna log in here. I'm gonna log in. I'm gonna publish the blog post. I'm gonna take this title and paste it here. I'm gonna select releases announcement. This is important because that category is what basically is listed here. If you go to resources, releases, that's a filter. This is a WordPress category, releases and announcements. So it's important that you check this. We also have added the tag release in the past. So I typically do that. I'm gonna copy paste the visual one. And now I'm gonna go to text. This is the HTML. I'm gonna copy it. WordPress adds a bunch of things that I don't typically like. So I'm gonna edit in IntelliJ and remove all that HTML. Let me open. Okay, now it's crashing. Fantastic. Can I get a scratch file? The project scratch. I'm gonna create a HTML file here, and we are gonna remove all this span. IntelliJ has one nice thing, which is this multi-line selection. We can remove this white space of the span, and I think now it looks fine to me. There you go. So copy with a nicer HTML to WordPress. I'm gonna go to WordPress and see if I find it here. We can just publish it. While the blog post is approved, I just went to docs.micronaut.io, and now we are showing the 4.4.3 release after the comment that we did to docs.micronaut.io. So that's working fine. I'm gonna toggle it as well. Next one is to clear the website cache. So the idea is that when you go to download.micronaut.io, we have here 4.4.3, and if I go here in Firefox, it still shows 4.4.2. The Micronaut website in WordPress uses cache heavily. So I'm gonna go here and do cleanup cache. And let's check in Firefox if that works. It's still not there. I used to have an ability to try flash cache. That's still not the case, so I'm gonna have to leave it for now. The cache will expire in some time, so probably tomorrow it will be already 4.4.3. So let's leave it like this. The blog post we generated, I'm gonna generate an image for the 4.4.3 release. So I have a shortcut, yet another shortcut to generate the image. I use Pixelmator Pro, and I have here a custom Micronaut release image, and this will do 4.4.3, and this will essentially put 4.4.3 in a background with Micronaut. So I'm using the ability for Pixelmator to essentially replace. See if it works correctly. So this is the image that I just generated. We use this image to illustrate the advertising in social media. So this is looking fine. So we just have to wait for the blog post to be live, announce it. Another step is guides. Let's do that. In guides, we have some revert to skip it guides for 4.4.3. So I'm gonna edit this branch directly. So this branch is for Micronaut 4.4.3. So I'm gonna do a commit here. We didn't have a draft PR for 4.4.3. We will just create a PR updating this version.txt file. So the beauty of Micronaut guides is updating to the next minor of the next version of Micronaut is just updating this. So I'm gonna say here 4.4.3. And this PR should be ready for review, and I'm gonna approve it, and let's see if it passes. So I'm gonna take the URL of the PR, and I'm gonna put it here, merge PR, updating every guide to the latest version, finish building. So I'm gonna put it with CI. So we are waiting for CI, so I can toggle this one. Another one that we have is archive the GitHub release project. So let's do that. I'm gonna click here in 443. Let's not archive it until we have closed these issues and commented here. So I'm gonna do here. This should be fixed in 443. And I'm gonna also comment here, this should be fixed in 443. That's fine. Archive the GitHub release project. We can archive it, yes. Let's do that. Close this project. There you go. And I'm gonna pause the video while the blog post is approved. And before I post the video, let me do the TechEmpower Benchmark upgrade. So we have a branch in TechEmpower to essentially test Micronaut. So if you go here, let me check if we don't have any open PR for updating Micronaut. So one of the things that I typically do in Micronaut during releases is to update the TechEmpower Framework benchmark repository. So you go here to frameworks and you go to Java, you go to Micronaut, it should be Micronaut, and you go to Gradle properties. It should be 443. I'm gonna do a PR and submit it to the TechEmpower people for them to review. The PR here so that we can check it. And I'm gonna say waiting. It's good. So now for real, I'm gonna pause the video and we will resume once the blog post is approved. Micronaut Guides PR finished building successfully. We can see it here. As you see, this can take up to an hour. So I'm gonna merge it. And that will essentially republish all the Micronaut Guides with all the sample projects being generated with 443. So I'm gonna merge this commit and we are gonna toggle this to do. I'm gonna verify that the downloads page contains 443, and indeed it does. Let me check it in a browser where I'm not logged in. That's working fine. Let me see if Chocolately lists 443. And indeed it does. We published the blog post. The blog post was approved, so it should be now live in the blog. So you can either reach it directly from the blog or from the releases if we didn't forget to add the necessary category. There you go. I typically double check the links just to make sure we don't have any broken link. This is linking to the release notes of 4.4.10, data 4.7.1, test resources, the 4.2 announcements and the commercial support. So all the links are good. So we are gonna go to post to social media. I'm gonna do something. I'm gonna use a shortcut to compose the message to social media. I'm gonna open the blog post. This is gonna be my active Safari window. And I'm going to show you the shortcut that I have. So I have Micronaut release announcement to clipboard. Let me open the shortcut and I show you. So it essentially will ask me for the version. You will get the current page from Safari, and it will compose the same message that we typically do with the link and the version. So I'm gonna go. When I run the shortcut, it's gonna ask me. I'm gonna say 443. I'm gonna copy to clipboard, and I'm gonna go to Ivory, which I have configured for post into the Mastodon account. I'm gonna paste the message. We use the Micronaut hashtag, and I'm gonna drag and drop the image that we generated yesterday. And I provide an alternative text. So I do here Micronaut Framework 443. I always use the Micronaut Framework Plus, the version that we have released as the alternative text. And off we go. I published to my personal account. I don't know exactly how we should do this with to linking. We should have like a dedicated Micronaut group or something. I'm gonna copy and I'm gonna paste it here. I also typically add also the image, and I add the alternative text for basically, that's the correct thing to do for usability in general, because it's the right thing to do. And I add the Micronaut hashtag. So linking is fine. Now I'm gonna go to Discord and I'm gonna paste to the announcements tab, and I'm gonna paste the message, and I also add the image, and I edit here and add the alternative text, and I just send, and I remove this embedded. I don't know how to do that automatically. And the last one is the Twitter one. And I'm gonna switch to the Micronaut account, and I'm gonna paste the message. We have to run the shortcut again to generate it. Run 443, and I'm gonna go to Twitter and add the hashtag, and I'm gonna drag and drop the image. Twitter will attempt to show like an card from the website. They typically remove the card and add the image with the release, and off we go. So the last step is to announce to the YouTube channel. So I'm gonna go ahead, run the shortcut to generate the so we are publishing to the YouTube channel as a post, which is I don't know how long has been in YouTube, but it's kind of a written post inside YouTube. This is something that I have been exploring. So I'm gonna go and do 443 here, and you go to YouTube, and you need to access with a user who is a manager or of the channel. You click create, and you click create post, and here you write like this, the same announcement that we have been doing. Please. There you go. So this is all I have in the checklist. We have just the bench TechEmpower, but that's kind of outside of our control. We just created the PR, and that has to be merged by someone in TechEmpower. So I'm gonna toggle it, and thanks for watching. As you see, there are many steps involved in doing a release. The most tedious thing is that you have to wait for some steps. So this is a process that you can like launch during the day, and then use a to-do application to just keep a reminder to check whether the progress is fine or not, and while you are doing other things. But yeah, all in all, it's all these steps are to ensure that whatever we list is essentially has passed all the functional tests and everything is good. Thanks for watching. Thank you.